So let's hit around another one because I think we're kind of steering to this. Understand the difference between advice and counsel. I was interested on this.
Okay. So within the book, there's a story told by one of the characters relating to an attorney that he had met in the past. And the story, a majority of the book is within a hospital environment.
Mm-hmm.
And this word is written up on the board in front of two of the patients. And the nurse there helps them provide this insight regarding what is advice versus counsel. And oftentimes in life, we're continuously asking, hey, can you give me advice on this? When in reality, some of the greatest discovery, even if we're misusing the word advice, we're really looking for counsel. So the big difference that's pointed out in the book, and I'll give some examples, advice is delivered with I in mind.
Mm.
Counsel is delivered with you in mind. So, Sam, you might say, Sean, what's some advice on what you would do in this situation? Naturally, my first response when it's advice driven is I would XYZ.
Right.
But I have zero context in most circumstances of all the underlying factors that you're like, hey, that's a good idea. And maybe I'll go through with that action step, but I don't know. So instead, if you were, and this comes down to the person asking the question.
Yes.
It's much harder to say to someone, hey, can you counsel me through this?
You're never going to get that. Yeah.
You're never going to get that from, an average person. Naturally, you can talk to a counselor, which, do it. Like, that's great, like, to have those sort of unbiased opinions that come. But when you, are talking to someone and say, can I, so this is asking the question, can I walk you through what I'm thinking? So naturally, instead of saying, can I get your advice? Where immediately you're going to get a reply. If you say, hey, can I walk you through what I'm thinking? The person on the other side is going to come to that discussion with, what do you think is right? How do you feel about this? And it takes more time. So that's why it's in a book called Pause for Progress. It's not the easier route at all.
Yeah.
It's much easier to say, hey, Sam, what's the best workout to, build up my biceps as quickly as possible?
Right.
Okay, here, hey, Sam, can I talk to you about, what I have been doing at the gym and what I'm trying to accomplish? That is going to be a longer conversation. You're going to have to flip into the you versus I. But I actually had a client that I work with who's in the legal field. As feedback from the book, she's like, I put this on an index card.
Yes.
And have it above my desk. Advice or counsel? ? So that's where you're almost forced to build a stronger relationship with a human when the conversation is going to be longer. You're asking for guidance where they're going to be focused on you. So again, this is not a one-way street either, because the person on the other side could be selfish. They could ultimately not necessarily care and flip the script into saying, hey, let me just tell you what I would do here. So now you're back on the advice route. So it's not easy. It's more of a conversation dynamic and also conversation control, but being mindful of how someone is communicating to you. Someone listening to this podcast, I could sit here and say, do this. I would do this. But it's, what do you believe is right for you? And that ultimately gets the person to a point of self-discovery. It gets them to a point of authenticity, and it all links back. So that was a lot, but hopefully it made sense.
That I think it's so interesting because there's a nuance to it, right? Because anytime we're in interpersonal communication nowadays, and everything we've covered already thus far, is it's that human element of it. Because you're right, like people ask for advice, and then there's just, I've always felt like there's context to everything. You can't take everything at face value, because even with the guys that I coach, we've all had our own life experiences. We all have our own perceptions. We all have our own belief values or belief systems and values, and all of these things shape the decisions that we make. Because I think we've all gotten advice that hasn't felt authentic to us, and then we act on it, and it's like that it's not in line with the character of who you are. And because then I've asked questions of people too before. I was like, do you want my opinion? Do you want my advice? Or what are you looking for here? I think how this is phrased, it's a lot better. But it's gold, man. It's gold. I love it.
Yeah.
Because like, again, when I got the book, I thought it was, is this going to be like Kumbaya, take some meditation time? Because there's so much of them out there. It's almost, and then I open up, I go through, and like I said, the first story, I was like, this is not that at all, and there's, I'd almost say they're almost like ethos. You could pick a handful of them that you feel most impactful to you, can just live by them.
Yeah. It's not something where it's like tying back to what I said. I read a bunch of books, and I was like, hey, I expect people to read this, maybe take 2 or 3 nuggets. But when an individual starts living by a certain action or principle, or even in the short time period that they're reading the book, they come to the end of a chapter and it says...
First off, at the end of every chapter, I'm left wanting to read the next chapter. I'll tell you that.
Like, never underestimate the joy you can find in time with a stranger. I don't know that, I would sit there and be like, who can I find that I can, find joy in a conversation with them? Maybe it's as simple as, the person at the checkout line at, the grocery store, or the person at the gas station, or your neighbor.
Yeah. I've been doing a thing where it's all these small, I try and make, if I notice like grocery line checkout, because some of them people, they go through, it's just, it's an exhausting job. When I was younger, and you deal with the general public, it can always be taxing. I make it a point to try and have that conversation to help them feel better. You know what I mean? And that's the stuff that's what's most important. You know what I mean? Bring your grocery cart to where it needs to be. Don't leave it out. Push them all together for the next guy. You know what I mean? It's all those small things.